No, it's everybody.
They haven't seen it in the contract. I would be crazy.
Hey Barney, you gotta stop sharing your screen because you're still sharing your screen right now. And so that's what it's picking up.
You see the night sky or something?
There we go. No, it's still asking.
It's just scheduled. Okay.
2 days ago.
So I think I look if I make sure.
They're driving down.
All right, there we go. I think we're good now.
That's
I'm sorry, we're just getting started. We're probably 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late, but I think considering the fact that we're trying to do this technology, that we were able to do anything, we are doing really well. And I want to say, I know Vika's been over here 2 or 3 times today. She and Chris have been testing this. And all we can do is the best we can do. And one of the things we have to remember, I'm remembering myself, we have to raise our voice so that people at home can hear us. And also, if we can speak, try to articulate, I think that will help. We wish that, maybe we should have somebody call and say they can hear us, but this is probably the best we're going to do. So thank you all for coming tonight. And I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Board of Selectmen or Select Board for Big Island. And the first thing on our agenda is public comments for items not on the agenda. And I'd just like to remind people the public discussion is intended for residents to express concerns. Those concerns may be referred to the town administrator, or that issue may be placed on a future agenda. Public discussion is not a time to make decisions. So just to remind people. So does anyone have any questions or comments for the board, for the town administrator about something that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to town reports. We'll start with the town administrator.
right, so I have a lot that I have to share with you tonight, so I'm gonna do it one item at a time, and then I'm gonna pause, and if you have questions or you wanna make a decision, let me know, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So the first thing is, more so of an update. As you guys are aware, we still don't have an auditor. It is not only a statewide, but a region-wide issue. I've attended a training recently where I learned the difficulties that not only small towns, but large towns are having in finding an auditor. COVID played a big role in it. I've contacted a number of different firms. Nobody has the capacity. It's not that they don't want to take on the work, they just don't have the capacity, they don't have the manpower to do it. So as a last resort, after contacting the state 3 different times and complaining to them, which I think I'm known by name right now, I called Peter Hall, who is the auditor that we have had the last couple of years through Smith and Associates. He's still doing municipal auditing. He is maxed out right now, but he is going to try really hard to see if he can accommodate us to at least do the 2021 audit to help us out. So once I hear more information on that, I will let you know. Any questions about that?
Anyone on the board have a question about the audit? Thank you for not giving up, Peter. Anyone in the audience, in the attendees have a question about the audit? This is more important for the school than it is the state. The state DOE has certain requirements of the school that are not requirements on the municipal side. So for them to qualify for grants and certain things, they're supposed to have an audit by December. And they've given us a waiver up to this point, but
They just submitted their 3rd extension.
yeah.
So
We're doing the best we can. It's just one of those things that's happened and it's a problem. Vika told us that even the town of Auburn does not have an auditor, the city of Auburn. Okay, no questions? Okay, moving on.
All right, so the next thing on the report is the discussion about the annual report. The annual report that we print every year does cost us right around $1,000 to print. And typically majority of what is in it are the financial statements and the copy of the actual audit. In addition to having the letters that the nonprofits that we ask to put in it. Very rarely is there the copy of the warrant in it. Chances are we will not have the warrant completed in time to do this. So the decision that you guys need to make as a board is, do you want to proceed with printing an annual report this year, which would only have the few letters that we get from the state, you know, Susan Collins and those offices, and the nonprofit statements, or do you want to hold off on that this year and then print them next year if we have an audit to print?
Thank you, Vika. What is the sense of the board? Mark,
Hold off.
is that the consensus of the board?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the consensus of the board to hold off this year. We will have to publish our financials, just the regular financials.
And we can, once we do the audit, we could do a publishing where we have that. It's just,
Or put it on the website, or, yeah.
we at this point aren't gonna have anything by the annual town meeting, so.
Thank you.
The next thing is the Stonework Widening, which just came up last week. The Stonework Widening project is the project that we had with CB and Mahar to do a study and give us some drawings on what it would entail to widen the stone pier. The individual who was working on this project dropped the ball on them and quit and didn't show up. And so we have, as of last week, been put in contact with another person. I have called him and emailed him. We've spoken on the phone. He, which I'm sure they say this to everybody, but he said that he's going to prioritize us and he will make sure that we have the final report ready for the next Board of Selectmen meeting to share with you.
Great. Any questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the public about the Stonework Widening? Yes, Bob? Bob, would you, if you're going to speak, could you roll with
The road,
Thank you.
the Stonework Road widening,
Oh.
not the actual stonework, yeah. Thank
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry.
Not there yet.
Okay, anybody else? John, would you mind sitting at that, going over to that, bench?
This is great.
Well, the reason we have that is so people at home can hear.
Sure, no, good evening. Good evening. It's a joke. Was the widening gonna happen on the ditch side or the? what
Well,
deep-
we're waiting to, it's probably gonna be on the ditch
I
side,
hope
but we're waiting, that's what we're trying to get
Yep.
that figured out. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, no one on the board, all right.
The next update is the dredging update. I received an email from them, with the exception of the little mishap that happened last week. The dredging is, going fine. They have received an extension until April 15th, so everything seems to be, going well. They did run into some ledge, past where CTC is tying up, and so there's gonna be those parts where with its ledge, it's, less dirt that they're gonna be removing, but, he said that everything seemed to be, going well with that, and hopefully they'll be done by April 15th.
Anyone on the board have a question about dredging? Okay, anyone on the board, audience? Thank you. Moving on to the boat engine update.
So with the boat engine discussion, we've been having a hard time finding a boat engine, and I can have Mark speak to this find, if he wants to, about, the most recent, thing that we have discovered. I don't know if you want to talk about it first. We did receive an email from, Justin Dowdy from the boatyard this afternoon, because I forwarded this information to him, and I can share what his thoughts about that was, if you want to say something first.
Sure, so basically, the guy that works with me doing construction deals with these two guys up in Portland. They're called Mobile Marine, Kirby and Nick Ellsmore. They deal mostly in mercury outboards. I tried to help the town look for an outboard if we're interested in repowering a harbor master boat. And engines are a bit hard to find unless you want to buy a brand new one, which we decided not to pursue as a town. We decided if we were gonna do anything on that boat, that we try to stay within our existing budget, which is about $6,000 or $7,000. So they have a 2007 Mercury 90 horsepower. It's a two-stroke engine. These people would rebuild the engine, basically put a new power head, which is basically rebuilding the top of the engine. Put the boat, bring the boat up there, take the old equipment off, put the new equipment on, seat test it, and warranty it fully for one season until it's winterized for $7,000.
Okay, so, and Lisa, did you have more you wanted to say before we start talking about it?
Do you guys want to hear the recommendation that I had from Justin, or do you want to talk about it first?
Oh,
No,
well, here.
So he emailed, myself, and then he CC'd all of you on it. I had forwarded the information that, Mark had shared. And his concern is that a 15-year-old motor comes with a large element of risk. And based on the picture on the estimate, his recommendation is to not go forward with the motor. The estimate states that the new power head will be rebuilt or manufactured. There is a difference between rebuilt by any shop and manufactured. So he raises, concerns about that. And he does say that it's difficult to find a perfect motor for $6,500 given the current market. He's gathered estimates for new motors for this particular boat, which is something that I had asked him to help us out with, from Honda, Mercury, Yamaha, and Suzuki, and any of them would cost around 14 to 15. So the option as it stands is roll the dice with a used one or find one around $15,000, which of course, with that discussion that we had earlier in the season, is a lot of them on back order, so you may not get that one for this season.
So on the board, what would people think? Jen?
A couple of questions. One is, what does the harbor master do with the boat? What does he do on water? What are her duties on water? We didn't have one last year and we seemed to survive reasonably well. So I'm not quite sure if we really need to go forward with a harbor master boat or not. And I haven't read the job description lately, so I'm not really quite sure what exactly he needs to go on the water for.
Well, I think it's a combined job description with also the shellfish warden, and so part of it is going around and checking flats, that's one thing, and checking moorings to make sure they have the stickers on, and being available if somebody has a problem. I think those are all things in that job description. I haven't looked at it recently, but it's pretty detailed. I'm not sure we have one here. We could probably look it up on the website. I think the question is, is it something we want to do? And we have two choices. One is take advantage of this opportunity and get a rebuilt one and hope it works. Or the other is buy one that costs twice as much, and we would have to take the money out of Selectmen's contingency because we don't have enough money in that budget. And so I feel if we have a harbor master, we should have a vote for the harbor master. If we have a vote, why don't we have more? I'm not more enough a motive. So how does anybody on the board want to say anything before I open up to the public?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a risk in any used piece of equipment, especially all boards can be a little touchy. I wasn't gonna make this recommendation, but I've met these guys. The guy that works with me is a solid individual who has all of his engine maintenance and work done by these people. He runs a Mercury Optimax on his boat. He commutes, when he can use his boat, in the good weather, he commutes with it daily from South Portland down to Chandler's Cove. So my point is, I wouldn't make this recommendation if I didn't think these guys could deliver a rebuilt engine. And we did decide to try to find something within the budget, and that's all I was really doing. I'm not pushing for this recommendation. We didn't have a vote in the water last year, and nothing went wrong, of course, because our harbor master doesn't go around enforcing things quite like the city of Portland, certainly the city of Town of Falmouth, definitely, Freeport or even Yarmouth, because there are no summons power or arrest power with our harbor master position. So checking moorings and making sure people are behaving themselves would probably be a good description of what that boat is used for most consistently. I don't know about checking shellfish stuff. I'm not sure the level of that, where the state is supposed to do it or the town's supposed to do it. I don't know any of that.
Well, it's checking to make sure people aren't planning without a license.
Yeah. So anyway, my recommendation was basically to give us an option of staying within the existing money that we have, except we would have to take another $500 possibly, because I think we only have $6,500, and this is $7,000. And trying to repower a boat that's been sitting there for a year or two. That's all I was trying to do.
Bob, would you go with this? You might want to go the other way because it's forward. Just to let everybody know, if you go around the back because we've got an obstacle course here.
It's like the school they put in the corner for kids.
Bob Ernest, a couple things, one for shellfish. The boat would be of no use checking licenses because you're shellfish digging at low tide. And even if you tried to use the boat to access the flat, that boat's not suitable for beaching it and then jumping out and walking. So it has, as from the shellfish committee standpoint, no use for that. From a public safety standpoint, the few emergencies we've had out here, Coast Guard, Sheriff Department, harbor masters from larger towns, all scrambled rapidly. And the two that I can remember, I think were there very quickly, as were a lot of our lobstermen and all that kind of thing from a public safety standpoint. And then in terms of the licenses, I would propose that the best way to check if licenses are up to date would be to look at the database of who's paid their fees, which doesn't require a vote. So I would avoid spending the money on it. My recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else? Paul and then John.
To clarify on mooring activity, stickers are not placed on mooring balls.
Oh, they're not.
All right, so there's no need to check that. And I can speak from personal experience that since 2007, okay, our first harbor master made 2 circuits of the island and recorded moorings. Since then, every harbor master, okay, that we have employed has not done that activity. Okay, so it hasn't been completed since Claire did it. There are moorings in the town that would have been questioned and brought to my attention had it ever been completed. As to the engine, I also saw the information that was made available and just want to confirm that Justin did look around and try to complete the task of not only evaluating this opportunity, but looking at the new ones. And I can wish to concur with his recommendation that you not proceed with the used one, and that if the town decides to repower that, you wait and do it with a new engine.
I think I meant numbers on the book. I said stickers, but don't they have to have numbers on those balls?
They're supposed to have, they are supposed to have numbers,
That's what I meant. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
and you said stickers.
Yeah, I know. I made a mistake. And so apparently that's something that we should be doing is having these having some kind of a mapping. You know, thank you, Paul, for bringing that to our attention. That has not been done. Okay, John.
Is there anything in the budget to save for a new engine or?
Yes,
like?
we have 6,500 cash right now, and we could take money out of the selectmen's contingency.
No, but like put away, like say in 3 years to have. In other words, to save up, like, is there like an annual amount?
Well,
that's
we
going-
could put money in our capital budget in this coming year. And then that would mean in July, there would be enough money to do it.
I know, Gennaro's not here, but I think he did do a whole revamping and checking of moorings and like old moorings, new like past owners and everything else. So I think he has done some work on
Thank you. Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? All right,
Yeah, there's no doubt that a new engine is our best option if we're gonna be serious about repowering a boat for the town to use. We kind of started down that path at one point and then backed off. I think the estimate was around 13,000 or 14,000, just like Boyd and Justin have said. So that is the number. So, you know, I think we should either, before I came over tonight, I went through the budget, we'll be talking about that. But quickly, right now, our capital budget's up about $145,000 from last year. So I'm gonna have some recommendations of trimming some things at some point to get that thing back down so we don't have the tax increase. If you wanted to buy a new engine, you would have to add at least $7,000, $8,000 to the amount that we have right now to purchase a new engine. I'm not even sure that would get it installed onto the boat.
So I guess I have a question. If, and maybe there's somebody here who can answer this question. If you ordered a new engine, when would you have to pay for it?
So this is the question that was raised a couple of months ago when I got in contact with the marina that had quoted us. And you had asked me to see if they would do a payment plan. They were happy to do a payment plan, but unfortunately, they don't put the order for that engine until they get the final payment. So,
Okay.
and that was one of the reasons why you went back to the scratch and, to this idea, because with that particular engine, if you put money into a reserve and you had that full fund to buy a new engine, that particular engine was on a 3-month back order, so that would make it so you wouldn't even have that boat available this particular summer, which is why this is the discussion that's coming up now, so.
I think Jay might-
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, I didn't see your hand up, Jim. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're fine. I was just going to add or say my thoughts are, as I've told you, I've been looking at other towns of similar size and, similar, islands and small towns along the coast and what they do for a harbor master. And, I was surprised at how many of those towns do not have a boat for the harbor master. And, I'm not in favor of purchasing any engine at this point until we figure out, what the position means for this town going forward.
Jay?
Along those same lines, I would, if it's appropriate, make a motion that we pass on purchasing this used engine and that we evaluate the need for a harbor master boat before proceeding with anything else.
Okay, so that's one whole motion.
That two parts in the motion.
That's what I mean, yeah. Okay,
That's
so
okay.
just to reiterate, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so moved and seconded that we not take advantage of this opportunity and that we not buy, that we not pursue this until we have a plan of how they use it. Is that what you were saying?
We evaluate the need for a harbor master boat
Okay,
and we review the role of the harbor master as well. I mean, let's, what does the guy actually do? And what do we need him to do? And I think that we need to review that.
okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? Oh,
I know we didn't have a boat last year, and I know, covered by certain other people. If we're not gonna have a boat in the water, we need to, like, I don't know who would cover this area or the island for an emergency. Portland or Long or something, but I think we need a Coast Guard, but we need to let them know that we're not gonna have a boat in the water.
well, the closest people, the closest towns that would be Yarmouth and Falmouth and Long Island.
Yeah.
Because by the time, the Coast Guard in Portland, those boats go fast, but Yarmouth would probably be the fastest, but depending where they were. I mean, that's the other thing. All the islands have a lot of acreage, in the ocean, and, you don't know if they're at Cousins Island, they'd be here fast, if they're from Yarmouth, if they're a handy boat, they could be here pretty fast. If Yarmouth is up the river, then that's a
Well,
different.
it doesn't matter who it is.
Right. But we need a
Need
plan for
somebody.
mutual aid.
Correct.
That, I would think that that's a very good point, Bo. Anyone else on the board before I open up to the public? Okay, anyone in the public want to weigh in?
Yeah.
I just, so for the sake of moving this discussion along, just because we do have people that have to present, that have to catch the 8 o'clock boat, can we focus on what you want to do with, if you want to do anything with the boat engine, or maybe table it for another discussion, since it wasn't an agenda item?
Right, okay, let's table, can we table that until more information?
Do you want to vote or
Okay,
no vote on
motion?
motion?
Okay, with you, Jen?
Well, you've got a motion.
Well, we
We're gonna-
should vote.
yeah.
All right, we can vote on it, okay. All right, is anybody up here? No? Okay, all in favor? I don't care one way or the other. So, what you vote on? I'll vote for it, everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move it on.
Oh, all right, so next topic, so bookkeeper search, we still haven't officially hired anybody, we still haven't found anybody. We've done some interviews, we advertised, we had an interview this week. I'm gonna call the references, in the next day or two and keep you posted. So the Stonework updates, real quick on that. We did close the survey. We had a really great turnout and we are having our first discussion tomorrow at 6 p.m., which is going to be on the safety and the flow of the stone pier. So if you could be there for that, that'd be great. Election papers are available. We have 5 school board openings. 1, 2, and 3-year terms. We have 2 select board openings. We had 2 people take out school board papers, so we need a lot of people to come and take out papers. That's that. Any question on those 2?
For the record, the meeting tomorrow night is here.
It is.
Yeah.
It
In
is here
person.
and it is in person.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Um,
You might want to put that out on the town, on the website where you give blast notices.
right over.
Put that out again. You've been terrific with that and it's worked really well.
Just didn't say where it was, I believe.
Okay.
And we'll be hybrid as well, although the people will only be able to participate via chat, right?
They'll have comments, if they have any comments or questions, then it could go through chat, otherwise that's the only level of participation that we can accommodate. So next thing is, I did receive the transfer study report back. I'm gonna meet with them to try to kind of, ask a few questions, and then that's something that should be shared with you by the next meeting. So those are the things that I have for an update. I do have 3 communications that I just want to really quickly brief through you and
Or
then,
can we do those during communication? It's up to you.
the communications will be after the budget, so I mean, these are really quick. It's nothing you really have to vote, you can just
Okay.
tell me yay or nay.
Okay,
So one is, it's an email received from Dan Haley, who is the chair of the Board of Harbor Commissions for Portland. They're applying for an $18 million grant, and they're just looking for, local areas to write a letter of recommendation in their support. I do have more information on that. It's not really, it's, similar to the grants that we've been writing where we're asking CTC and other towns to provide a letter of recommendation. Another one is very similar from Eco Maine, email from the communications manager asking us to write a letter in support of a recent, excuse me, act that the Senate is putting tabling, and it's to improve solid waste management. So those are the 2 things that you can either put them as agenda items, or you could just say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. Nothing that really requires a motion.
anyone have a concern with her writing a letter supporting those 2 requests on behalf of the town? Seeing none?
They provided me a letter, so we
Yeah.
just put our letterhead on it,
Right.
and it's very easy. The 3rd communication is received from Eliza Jane Adams, and Echo and Sika, for both working on affordable housing, is coming out to do, or rolling out a survey that they would want to do, and all they're asking right now is to use the town of Shabik Survey Monkey. So if that's something that you would allow, then I'll let them know, and then they'll just be using our account to spread that survey around.
Anyone have a problem with that? We have been a partner in that project going along. Okay, good.
All right, so that's everything on the town report. The treasurer's report It really doesn't have anything much different than I gave you 2 weeks ago, other than the fact that the account is reconciled through the end of February. Marjorie was here last week. She did say that she was happy with how smooth things looked, and she didn't see any issues. The only difference that worth mentioning is on here, through February, our checking balance was around $500,000. As of today, it was almost $900,000 more than that because of all the taxes that we received in March. So we seem to be in a pretty good standing with that. And then the treasurers and the expense revenue reports that I shared with you are really the same thing that I shared with you last time. So my suggestion is if you have any specific questions, come see me.
Okay, great. Everybody all set with that? Okay, so there's a couple of reports in here that I don't know if we need to read them. They're in the packet, right?
Yep, there's a report from the harbor master and there's a report from Public Works. Public Works, they, the only thing really worth mentioning is they did put the floats in early. And there was a welding issue that they couldn't handle that Chris Burgess helped them out with on one of the trucks. And harbor master, we got the moorings sent out. And shellfish licenses are on sale, so all the basic stuff.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's move quickly on to the first real agenda, not real agenda, but the first regular business item, which is to hear recommendations from the code enforcement officer regarding various fees and consider action. And before, I've never met you yet, but it's nice to meet you. And I just want you to know that I just had a phone call from someone who just commended how great you are to work with and how smooth the process is and with the building project and the road permit. And they just, so I thought, I'd like to tell you that in person.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go up there.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess that $20 I still didn't work, so. thank you
I
for
guess
that.
it did. No, I think it's that extra 2 feet. No, I'm just kidding. There was no extra 2 feet.
Yeah, so I'm Jim Butler. I'm the code enforcement officer. Nice to see everybody and meet everybody. Talk louder. Okay. Do you want to open up, Vika, or want me to just go through my list? Okay, floor is mine. So Vika asked me to take a peek at the fees and the fines, and I believe you all have a copy of that in your packets. In orange is what we're proposing, and what's to the left of that is where we are currently at with the fees. I'm not emotionally or physically attached to any of these numbers. I just know that we've been, last year we didn't increase any, but the year prior I believe we did. So I like to keep track of where we're at to make sure we're staying in the right realm of charging fees for construction activities, for everything that's on this list. So if we'd like to go line by line, it should only take a few minutes. And I don't know if you guys want to mark up yours, if there's any changes.
Instead of going line by line, well, can we ask if anybody has a question first on the board? I'm just thinking, trying to, move this thing along.
Sure.
Bo, did you have any specific questions?
I just had the line item in the building permits, the demolition. What does that consist of?
Sure. So the demolition permit is if anybody is demolishing any structure. So permits are required to build buildings, but also remove them as well. The main DEP does have a permit process that we have to report out to them. And that's to ensure that we're complying with, asbestos abatements, lead abatements, et cetera, things like that. Certain properties are exempt from that. Typically, 1 and 2 family dwellings typically are, but once you hit the commercial realm, then there's some reporting out and some testing that might have to take place depending on the situation. So it is a process of, going through the file and filing appropriate paperwork. So that one, I did bump that up from $35 to $100.
Any other questions?
Additionally, on that demolition as well, we do notify the tax assessor as well. So if somebody does remove a structure and don't replace it, then they remove it from their tax bill as well.
Okay, so moving on, I just had a couple of questions. We need to define a shed. Because some of the sheds that are, including at my house, we have a barn that was a shed, and it's not a shed. And somehow we talked about this, as it became a town.
I'm not repeat all that, do I?
No, no.
We would be lining ourselves up, so we wouldn't be spending money to review somebody else's project,
Right,
essentially.
right.
So that's kind of in the spirit of a lot of these on this last page, to make sure that we're not incurring costs due to private development.
And I think this is something we're finding, we did a little subcommittee working on, transfer station fees. And it's the same thing, we're finding that, you know, we're not even close to what Long Island was in 2018. You know what I mean? So it's time that we do this thing. So thank you very much. Mark, do you have any questions?
Just very quickly, it won't waste time, Jim. In your opinion, was the goal from you and the town office to get these more in line with covered costs of that actual doing business?
Well, I wasn't directed that specific task, but I've been a part of a lot of fee schedule updates, you know, twice now for this community and a lot of other communities in Southern Maine. And I'm pretty in touch with a lot of other, you know, larger and smaller towns are doing for fees. And, you know, of course, it's the objective of the fee schedule to cover costs, to make sure that, you know, we're collecting enough revenue to hopefully pay for the services of code enforcement, administering that program, administering planning board functions, board of adjustment functions and things like that. You know, we certainly aren't there, but that's definitely a goal of mine, is to get you guys to a point where it's not coming out of the tax base to pay for such activities. It's being paid for by the users.
Yeah, and this comment isn't because there's anything coming out of my pocket when I do a project, because if I do a new construction or remodeling project for a customer, they pay for the permit fee, but I have taken some comments / complaints on the level of the remodeling permit, which is right now $10 for every $1,000 of estimated value of the project. So quickly, you could build a 3,000 square foot house new for about $2,000, $2,400 worth of permits, roughly would be the number. And if you did a $300,000 remodel, it would be $3,000. And you're not going to build a new house for $300,000 right now with any size to it. So
Correct.
I don't think we need to raise the rate from $10 to $11 for remodeling. That's just me, from what I've heard from some of my customers. I know Falmouth is only at $5 or $6 right now for that certain item. That's one comment. The other comment is reinspection fee. Have you ever had that happen since you've been here? Not really.
No, I can't say I have. And a lot of times, you know, in the spirit of working with people in voluntary compliance, I mean, we kind of use that as a penalty. But 9 times out of 10, if we have a reinspection, it's typically, you know, something got missed, minor issue. And that's more used as a tool in the toolbox. So if somebody is using the code officer as their private inspector to, you know, say, you know, is this enough yet? Is this enough yet? It's a mechanism to charge them for that if there's some use of it. Since I've been here, I haven't had to use it.
Gotcha. And have you had to deal with any unpermitted activities since you've been working for Chevet?
I have, you know, obviously it's a small island and people notice things. So typically, you know, my tact with unpermitted work, like in many other towns, you know, we work with people, educate them, reach out, notify them. Sometimes they don't know any better. Sometimes they're hoping they don't get caught. And typically my rule of thumb is working with them. And if they submit immediately, I don't penalize them for that.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
And this is a tiny bit off topic, so excuse me, everyone, for just 1 second. Do you think there's any way for us to require or strongly recommend for people to get their own dumpsters when they do certain size projects on this island to ease the strain of our transfer station?
Sure, and I've had some conversations with the town administrator about this exact topic, and I put a little bit of thought into it. And yes, with ordinances, we can require really whatever, you know, the wishes are. You know, without creating a new ordinance, we'd have to put it into one of our existing and make an amendment. And, you know, in our zoning ordinance talks about the building permit process. And with some amendments to that, there could be a requirement of, or a threshold that would require certain size projects to provide a dumpster on site, which would really be exactly what you're talking about. So currently, I don't have the authority to ask for that because there's nothing in our ordinance that requires it. But if that's an issue, then that's certainly maybe an amendment that can take place to require that. You know, because obviously doing a smaller remodel job like flooring and tiling and maybe a bathroom job, you probably don't need one. But if you're tearing down and rebuilding a house, you're adding on and creating all that construction debris, you know, so finding that sweet spot of where it makes sense would be a good idea.
Thank you, Paul.
And just I'll comment back on your cost of construction. I agree with you. Some towns are all the way up to $15 or $16. Some are down to $5 per thousand of construction costs. So I think we do well with the $10 per thousand. I was just looking again for ways to increase revenue. So any changes you wish to make, I won't object. But with the changes per square foot, I'm hoping to make those more cost effective and equal, fair for the new construction versus the renovation costs.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks. Jen?
I think you answered just about all the questions I had. My main question was to see if these numbers line up with other towns, similar in size.
Sure. So it's hard to compare this town to a lot of other towns. Just doing construction and building out here, as you all know, is a lot more expensive. There's a lot more costs. So, which is more justification for higher fees out here. But I think what we're proposing here is really getting in line to where we want to be. In my full-time role, I'm the director of the town of Old Orchard Beach, and we're going through the same thing right now. Our fees are higher than these. So I was in Scarborough before I was in Old Orchard Beach. Their fees are higher than this. So one of the ones that none of you have mentioned, I was surprised, is the growth. I think did we discuss the growth permit?
It's highlighted within the ordinance.
Okay, so that's a separate conversation. So that currently is $100. And I get it, we don't want to price people out of building homes and whatnot, but I've seen an uptick in construction, and I'm sure all of you have seen an uptick in house sales and building and things like that. And we're finally hitting that 4 growth permits per year cap, no more than 20 in a 5-year period. A lot of people laugh when if I tell them it's $100 for the growth permit. Like, what's the point? Like, it probably costs more for you to answer the phone and issue the permit than what we're paying for it. So I think I proposed that jumping up to $1,000. A lot of other communities, their growth permits are, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and they issue a cap of like 120 foot permits a year, and they hit those caps.
When we were part of the town of Cumberland and we started this program, we advocated and it was approved for houses that were under 1,500 square feet, that they were at a lower rate, because we felt that it was more of a burden on somebody who was building a smaller house. And is that done anywhere else?
I don't personally know of any other town that does it by square foot. They do it by dwelling unit.
Yeah.
That I'm familiar with. I'm sure that our towns do it that way.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Jay, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, so my suggestion is that we think about this and put it on a future agenda to go on. Is that okay with the board?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
very good.
Opportunity for public.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
Couple things. One, because the growth permit is in an ordinance, that would require a town meeting vote
Right, we know
as
that.
opposed to the rest of them being administrative. You might want to ask the question, should that be in the ordinance, or should that be moved out of the ordinance and become a fee like the rest of the fees are? The only other comments I had to do with the scope of the change. A lot of these are triple or more than what they were before. And that just seems like a pretty big jump. Jim made the comment that it's really expensive to build out here. And I don't know if that's a reason to make fees more, or is that a reason to make fees less? I don't know. I'm just asking you to consider that. It's everything out here costs more. In terms of covering our cost, have we done any sort of comparison of the cost of the planning board, cost of the code officer compared to the fees that we currently collect? Is there a spreadsheet that shows that somewhere?
We haven't done that specifically, but he collects the fees and what we collect, and I mean, I don't think it would be hard to figure that out.
Right.
I don't think it's anywhere near what we take in from the fees to what we pay, especially if you add the cost of the planning board budget into it.
And I'm not sure it would be appropriate to include all of the planning board budget in it because the planning board's role is more than just as relates to permitting and that kind of thing. That's a pretty deep question. Second, is there a tally or sheet somewhere that shows how we compare to similar towns on some of these fees? I would love to see that as part of this conversation, to actually see how we compare to different sized
Those
towns.
are two good suggestions and we can
Yeah.
we can get that together before we bring it up on the next time.
And then lastly, I would also just from a public standpoint and from the planning board standpoint, and from the standpoint of someone who works on affordable housing, I would support what Donna said about a two-tier. I think we'd be within our legal rights to, certainly if it's in the ordinance, we'd be within our legal rights to have that two-tier, 1,200 square feet and below, or 1,500 square feet and below, or whatever. So I think
It
that's.
was
a really
actually
good-
my idea in Cumberland and they actually.
Well, that's why we left.
Well, no, they did.
I'm just saying, it's a good idea. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anyone else want to talk about this building? Okay, now we're gonna move on because we have a lot more on our agenda. And we will revisit this in a couple of weeks when we get all of those questions that have been raised answered. All right, so the next item is to hear a presentation on the Indian Island erosion. And just for just some background on this before we start. As we know, in the last couple of years, we've had some erosion on the Indian Island Road and down at the beach. We have a agreement as part of the town that was executed, I believe, in 2002 with the Indian Island Company that gave public access to the road to Indian Island, to the beach ties and use of over 100 feet of shore frontage. Part of the conditions of that was that the town would maintain the road. And we have done that up to this point. And so at town meeting last spring, we had a town meeting vote, and it was overwhelmingly, we had the people at the town meeting overwhelmingly voted to allocate $60,000 for repairs. So we're going to have a presentation tonight, and I can tell you that we're going to have some more information about this. And now, do we need to turn the lights off or? And this is Barney Baker, who is our engineer on this project. Sorry, I didn't introduce you, Barney.
It's okay. And no, I think many folks have met me before. I'm broadcasting on Zoom and here in the building tonight. I work with a GEI Consultants. They're a company in Portland, Maine, and they have offices all over North America. So tonight, I'm working on the ending point of resiliency assessment. I was authorized to work on this last summer. And so I'm just going to briefly take you through the work that we've done in that period. And also the real purpose of the meeting tonight is to make recommendations for repairs to the Indian Point. I think everybody that is familiar with Indian Point knows that it's in tough shape right now. It experienced a significant storm event this winter in January, and just was pretty heavily damaged. So let's see if I can do this. Slide 2. So what's our scope of work? Access existing conditions, identify features at risk, review the regulatory issues, look at grant opportunities, and develop a repair plan. So that's what we were charged to do. Surveyed the site, very accurate survey. So we've got topo of what it looked like, obviously before the storm event. And why did we do that? We wanted to kind of benchmark where it was, record where all the old seawalls were, and make sure that we had an opportunity to work from a very accurate plan. This picture, incidentally, is taken from the parking area not long ago. And I do have pictures of what it looks like now, if we have time, but I think everybody knows that this area that we're looking at here, very healthy with dune grass, is virtually non-existent right now. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of the accuracy that we got from the drone survey. You can see off to the upper left, you can see the boathouse at Indian Point, right at the neck, so the isthmus of Indian Point. I don't seem to have a pointer. Let's see, I think I can get one. Oops. So this is the same map, and what we've done is we've contoured it, and so you can see the elevations. We've identified different colors to show what the extent is at different tidal elevations and overwash. So that's I'll be producing reports, and that will be in the report. One thing to notice here is this sand spit, very prominent feature. This whole area, the foreshore, the beach, is in constant changing, and got a picture of this sand. So basically, all the sand that was up on this area, a lot of it is sitting in this this berm right here. We'd like to get it back if we could. And next slide. Yeah, this is that same this berm. I think most people know. We've got some people out there now. This is low tide. You can see this area used to be, as I understand it, talking to folks who've lived there all their life. This area used to be, much more populated with shellfish and rockweed and all formations that essentially increase the resiliency and the approach of this area. So with those gone and the beach steepening, that is kind of a sign of the transition this property is going through. So what we did was we came up with some resiliency measures. So basically, everybody knows this is the parking area right here. That's the neck. That's also the area where everything to the left of that is Indian Point. And to the right is also private property or in conservation. But the town has an easement that they retain the road access in return for having a beach access here. So the town and Indian Point Association have both participated in the work that I'm doing, and both benefit from it also. So these colored areas here are various levels of erosion that have occurred that we are able to fix if we spend money on them, because they existed there before, and the regulatory agencies and your town code enforcement officer will let us go and fix these areas. So this shows the site has a history of seawalls, and they're in different kind of stages of repair. But what they do very, very well is mark the old improvement. You can see this seawall has been overtopped in the storm in January. Basically, the water kind of congregated in this corner, and there was an overwash, and a lot of this back area got washed out. It's not so much but it did contribute, basically from the pictures, you can see waves, hitting all along this line, but they did just seem to multiply and get higher on this corner. So what's really the long-term solution here? This is what we came up with. This is ideally, if in an ideal world, this is what we'd like to do. We'd like to put in a stone mattress. We'd like to put in a boulder toe. We'd like to put in dune nourishment on top. And we'd like to reinforcing and raise the road. And I think this is all doable, but it requires a lot of money. And money is in short supply right now. And we haven't been able to identify a grant. So we've kind of moved back to what I'm proposing we do is a repair of these areas with a less resilient solution, but one nevertheless that has a good chance of success. So one is on the parking area. Parking area is in the foreground here. This actually is growing right now. You can see the sand is actually accumulating here. We're suggesting that this area get planted so that you kind of reinforce the building and the natural construction that is going on. And that's in this area here in the red. Of course, it's on Indian Point property. But this is the public access right here. So these another area where the foreshore is defined by previous improvements, and these logs are still intact. They're chained to the beach. So that's kind of an example of the success and the resiliency of previous improvements. The softer materials have eroded behind, but the harder toe has remained. And that's, again, similar to long-term repair that will go in the report, but it's just not feasible at this time. So what are we faced with? We're faced with planting and putting in sand, but really rely on a lot on plantings and the old seawall to provide resiliency, and some natural materials like geotextiles. So this is an example of a beach that we did in Scarborough. And you can see there's some geotextile underneath this. This is a young repair. This is what we're proposing in quite a lot of the area down there. Basically get the plants reestablished because they do a great job of reinforcing the shore. The other thing, and I don't know whether, did I just jump? No, that's right. So another long-term solution that we just want to plant the seeds for now is putting some sort of barrier out from the Indian Point that would break the waves down, because what's happening is wave action is coming through here, and it's kind of aggressively reacting on this beach area. But if these aquaculture pens were put in some sort of pattern, they would act to reduce the wave action. And there are quite a few aquaculture facilities out here. So just planting the seed for that. Is that not actually part of the repair program? The repair program that I'm proposing we do is pretty simple. We're going to get the road fixed. We did, Deke and I met with Chuck, the Public Works, and the town. Chuck has maintained the road for several years and understands what's needed to be done. And he's got that on his list to fix the road down to the parking lot this spring. The thing is, he can't do it until the washed out areas next to the road are fixed, because it's just too dangerous to drive down there, and that's why the road is closed right now. So this repair program needs to address the washout areas. It's also going to improve drainage. Chuck is going to put in some water bars up as you come down the hill to redirect the water so that it doesn't congregate in those areas behind the seawalls. But it's more sheet flow and onto the other side. And then the biggest thing we need to do is reestablish vegetation and provide safe access to the shore, at the beach access. So cost estimate, I've got a drawing that I'll jump to, but I just kind of wanted to get right to our costs because they're kind of lost in the detail and on the drawing. But I've developed these costs with a contractor that's done a lot of work on the island and has some specialized equipment for beach work. He's got a dump truck that spins. It's on the same chassis as a backhoe, and he helped me work and develop these costs. But what it would be is this is an estimate, and we obviously we're here tonight to look at these numbers and to try and figure out how we can get there. But the 31,500 would be labor and equipment. 11,000 would be for the longer gangway. I've got a little drawing of that I can show you. 10,000 would be for geotextile. Now that's the reinforcement of the shore, and it's there to both reinforce the long-term stability of the dune and the area behind the existing retaining walls. But it also, in the short term, it protects and allows the plants to come in. Then $51,000 is for fill. Everybody knows that it's very expensive to get fill out to this island. It's all imported from the mainland. And then 16,500 is for plantings. Now these, I just want to stress that these numbers they're solid because I've worked with Robert Anderson to develop these numbers. I also took Bo down to the site and got a lot of input and feedback from him. And it's conceivable that Bo and Robert might team up to do some of this work. I didn't want to put Bo in the awkward position of providing prices on a job and then having to vote on it. So I kind of kept you out of the negotiation, but certainly Robert is well known on the island and is open to working with someone like Bo and also maybe someone like BJ. I'm not sure if BJ is still here. I suspect that he is. Moving right along quickly. So this is the thank you, and this was the short version of the presentation. There is a longer one, but what I wanted to do now is jump to the drawings that I prepared for the temporary work so that you can kind of see what we proposed. And bear with me while I do that. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet. So this is, let's see if I can do this. Looking for his full screen, but seem to be having trouble getting there. Let's see. Here it is. Okay. Hey, look at that. So for some reason, why am I not projecting? I'm going to stop share and then share it again. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and share it. I apologize. I know everybody feels for me.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So here we go. So I think, well, no, we're not there.
So it's on the Zoom.
Oh, it is.
So the people in Zoom can see it,
Good.
but we can't.
Oh, got it. So I think I know what the problem is there. Yeah. So you guys have been able to see it so far, though, right?
I can see it on the Zoom. Well, and I have a really good view.
The
Oh, you,
projectors,
so
you
no
gotta
one
do-
else has been able to see what I've been talking about?
No, we saw the old one, but the new one, you can't, for some reason, you're not
No, we
able.
can't see
Right.
the.
Are
we
you
can't see the
projecting it through the
drawing.
projector as well as through Zoom?
Why is that not working? Let's see.
Did you
Well,
say
if I turn Zoom off
slideshow?
for a minute, I mean, not Zoom, if I turn my PowerPoint off. And this up. This is a point of the meeting when an 8-year-old kid usually comes up to help me do something.
You just did something.
Yeah,
There we
There we
go.
okay. All right, I'm not gonna touch anything. Well, second screen only, let's see what that does. Well, let's just work with this. I apologize. Oh, look. All right, so, all right, so this is our, yeah, so this is, again, I keep fixating on the point of the isthmus where at the narrowest point where the parking area is, which is right here. And everything this side of this line is town, and everything this side of this line is Indian Point. So those prices I gave you earlier, just to be clear, those were just for the town. I have another price set, which is actually a comparable amount, almost very close to the other one for Indian Point. So, you know, Indian Point is meeting next week, but this tonight, we're really just talking about town costs. So it's the cost I gave you, and I wrote them down so that I can refer to them. But we've got just in material costs, we've got $10,000 for the gangway. I'm going to show you what that looks like. We've got a geotextile and fill, which would be fixing these areas back from the parking area and into the behind the retaining wall. We've got 61,000, and then we've got 16,500 in plantings. So just to show you what that looks like. You've seen that one. Okay, so here we are. So the gangway that everybody, I think, knows, the gangway that's out there is very short, and there's no railing on it, and also quite steep. And what we're trying to do is to improve access. We're actually this is not going in. I can work around this one. Let's look at this one while we're here. So this is what we're planning to do behind the retaining wall. We're leaving the existing seawall in place, and we're just filling in the area behind it. We're collecting the rocks that are already there. We're adding sand and geotextile, and we're planting it. And this is the area where currently, if something's not done, someone's going to lose a car up at the edge, or a pedestrian's going to be walking down the road and they're going to dump somebody that, you know, push somebody into that. So that's gonna fix that area. Further down near this is close to the parking area, where again, we're using the existing seawall that's already there as a toe, so that we can tie a geotextile and a core mat into that. And then we're gonna put that reinforcement, we're gonna bring some sand in, do nourishment, put some reinforcement over the top and plant it right back to the road. So then if I can work out how to get up to this part of my drawing. Okay, look at that. Okay. So this is the area of the gangway. And this would be a seasonal gangway, but it would be anchored at the top of the bank and at the bottom of the bank. And I'm proposing that it be 20 feet long to improve the gradient and you know, just be that much safer. So if you have elderly people or even mobile people using the beach, you don't have that area to cross. It's more accessible. And then on the road, what we're doing with the road is not significant. We're just going in and we're pushing all the sand that's accumulated and been pushed up there. We're going to collect that and put it back on the dune. We're just going to put in some kind of a gravel mix that's that binds very well and create a surface there. So that's just going to improve the road. So that is thankfully the end of this presentation. But so the recommendation is that the town consider making these improvements so that you can get this this facility back up and running for the summer, and also get the plantings reestablished and get the road protected and put some life into it for a few years, several years. It really is dependent on when the next big storm might occur, but it was in poor shape before that storm did come. And you saw that slide that I put in there earlier that was taken just a few years ago at the parking area. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. And so I am still on Zoom. No. Yeah.
If you guys want to continue and you take questions or whatnot,
Okay.
I'll deal with
All
it.
right, great.
Right.
Yeah, I feel for you, Barney, because I've been giving talks on Zoom, and it is so frustrating when you get into one of those positions where you've got, 60 people on a Zoom lecture,
Right.
and nobody can see you, or they can't hear you, or whatever. Everybody's trying to move it. This is the world we're in now. It used to be when we just were in a place and you didn't have to worry about the hybrid, things were a lot easier.
Right. I don't know if we've got any chat questions or anything like that.
So I'd like to start the discussion of Barney's proposal, just as a reminder that why the town is in this in the first place, again, is that we entered into an agreement in 2002 with Indian Island.
Article 11.
Oh, to maintain and access to Little Shabbat, and in return, we have that access. We have the ability to park 5 cars down there. People can go swimming and go to the beach down there, and that's really why we're involved in this today, because so many people feel that that's such a treasured place in this community. And as we said before, we had over $60,000 allocated by town meeting. And as you can see, we're $60,000 short. I'm pleased to announce that we have received a grant for $60,000 from a private foundation. I received the call tonight just before the meeting started, that will match the town's contribution if the town votes tonight to release that money to go toward this project. And that check will be cut tomorrow and be in the hands of the town by next week. So just to let you know that that is a possibility. So now we're talking about where we could get the money, where do we go from here? And so first I'm going to ask the board, and then we'll go to the public. And because just what I would like is that people can really be succinct in what they have to say, because we still have a couple of more items on here, and we do have people who want to try to make the vote. So, Bo?
I just had a couple questions. The Scarborough Repair, what kind of damage was that prior to the picture that showed?
I'm sorry, what,
The Scarborough Repair, you showed a Scarborough Repair with plantings and.
yes, that was to show, really the dune plantings, what they look like. That's actually, on Scarborough Beach. There's a seawall in front of it. And it's the seawall is gets overtopped. And so that dune that you saw there wasn't there before. That sand was added and that was planted to increase the protection behind the seawall for the wave action. So what prompted that was actually 7 owners, banded together to do that work. They were all, their frontage was all in different states of disrepair.
So the second question is, how does because I've never done the planting stuff, how does the planting would hold up to wave action, like overtopping it and
Right.
possibly, catching it from the back?
Well, you can see that further down the beach on Indian Point. If you go, there's sort of the sand develops into a bluff. And if you look at the root system of the dune grass plants, they actually extend down into that and create quite a, they kind of reinforce the soil. But you do get accretion. So it's not a permanent repair, but it's a repair that will serve the test of time and get you back up and running down there.
Thank you.
Mark?
Barney, even if this project was funded, is it all permittable? Is this all permittable realistically?
That's a great question. So we have, in the process of doing this work, we've met with DEP, the Army Corps, we met with the town code enforcement officer, we've talked to Maine Geological Survey, Pete Slavinsky, and everything I've proposed here is kind of putting back what was there and using a similar, structure. So it's all eligible for a permit by rule, and it's primarily designed to reestablish what was there earlier. We're not putting any new structures in.
And did I understand during your presentation that if this repair was done, that you would try to roll the geotextile up the inside of that existing deteriorated seawall? Is that what that meant?
Yeah, so you need to key in the geotextile at the seaward end and at the other end. So we're just using the existing timber as a key in point. So the resilience of the repair is a combination of plantings and geotextile. So even if you go down there now, you can see, geotextile that was behind the wall before.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it wasn't, I don't think it was keyed in particularly well. and it's, come apart.
Okay. And it's kind of safe to say that this would be, if it moved forward, would be a temporary solve.
It would not be a long-term, repair. Unfortunately, the long-term repairs that are just, significantly more expensive than this.
So if a long-term repair was to be done in a place similar to that or down at that place, it would really be a tapered stone seawall. Is that accurate?
So
Would that be the choice of DEP and Army Corps?
DEP and Army Corps would require a permit for any change in structure footprint. So that permit process would be would be challenged by some of the resource agencies.
Yeah.
So Indian Point has it's a beautiful sanctuary. You saw from that aerial photo that I showed, the drone photo. It's got a coastal wetland. It's got sand dunes. It's a beautiful place. What's holding it together is the vegetation down there.
Yeah, and very quickly, one more question, and this one's a tricky one. Do you believe it's the opinion of the science that the sea level rise could overwhelm that area in the future?
So there's.
In other words, is Indian Island being told that they may have to move their boathouse or something?
Well, so Indian Island's in a pretty good position because they're on ledge. So they're always going to be in a very good place. Their building is, literally on ledge, that whole outcrop area. I mean, there's lots of places in Maine that you can only cross to them at low tide. So if we get the sea level rise, it wasn't so long ago that people were saying, that's just a low bunk, it's not coming. Now everybody's saying sea level rise and the world is ending. We can't do anything else. But it's all about adaptation. And with Indian Point, you can either go in and spend a lot of money to make it more resilient, or you can just adapt. And if the sea level rise does come up in accordance with some of the models, you're just going to be crossing it at low tide, just like you walk across to a Little Shabig now.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for your answer.
Jen?
So the presentation, it basically doesn't guarantee, you could have all this work done and then a big storm this fall could take it all away.
Right.
That's kind of the risk you play with on these situations.
If you do the repairs and you get that storm, you have a lot less damage down there because you'll have a more resilient surface. So it's not a great analogy, but the Falmouth Town Landing and Indian Point are at about the same elevation. Both experience the same storm. Falmouth Town Landing is more resilient. It has pavement. And Indian Point was in really tough shape. The vegetation was not well, it was not healthy, and a lot of exposed sand. It experienced quite a lot of damage. If we can get the point back to a place where the vegetation's healthy and the shape of the shore is smooth, and then we also get hopefully some help from Mother Nature. It's very scoured out there right now, and it's just because of the pattern of storms that we've had in the past few years. Those patterns change, and we could experience a building session, if the storm activity switches around. So I hope I answered your question. I don't think we'd lose. That storm that came through was a very unusual storm. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but
The videos of the storm.
There are some videos that show the wave action down in Indian Point. It was a very strong, you got this.
I guess my concerns are severalfold. One, I'd love to see a written report. It gives you a chance to actually study and think about it. Two, doing what, in my mind, and unfortunately I haven't been convinced from what you've said, that it's anything but a temporary repair. Sea level rise is real. How much is the issue? I'm definitely in the school that says it's going to be like a foot or two over the next 20 years, not 6 or 8 as some have suggested. And that's based on the people that are doing the NOAA model. Well, I have to know right now. So I'm sort of at a loss as to why we would spend $120,000 on what really looks to be a temporary repair, just waiting for the next big storm. And that's my problem. And I haven't really, from what you've said, remained very much unconvinced, unfortunately, that this will be anything but a very temporary repair. I'd love to hear something to the contrary. Which is also why I'd like to read the whole.
Anything else, Jay? You have any questions? Any other questions?
That sort of covers.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna weigh in before I open to the public. I think that we all know that if we do absolutely nothing down there, that we're basically have lost the whole place. We've lost the option number one to drive down there. We've lost the option because we're not maintaining the road. We've broken our agreement with Indian Island. Theoretically, we would not have access down there. I mean, I don't believe they would necessarily say we couldn't. The land trust does have a walking easement down through there, which was granted before the town. But it would, but basically we're giving up today. Now, that doesn't mean that 10 years from now, this isn't going to wash out or whatever. But I guess for me personally, that I think that's enough of a treasure that we should take advantage of this matching grant that we have and go forward with at least doing the repairs that we can do by permit by rule. So that's where I'm coming from. So now I'm going to open it up to the public. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand and then go up to the speaker.
Can I just, are you planning on staying or are you planning on leaving on the 8th? I just want to keep time in case if you have to run out, if this conversation continues.
No, I'm willing to stay. There's another ferry at 9. If you ask me the same question at 9, I probably may have a different answer.
Just wanted to double check on that.
Thank you.
Because the time is creeping up, so I just wanted to be mindful of that one.
Yeah, thank you Lisa, for that. All right, is there anyone in the audience, Bob?
Taking notes while Barney was talking, and I'll try to be brief, but it's not gonna happen. The storm event this past January, I was there for that storm. I've also been present for every last 3 years that occurred when there was a high tide in the wind direction coming from the same direction. I have videos of these storms of waves crashing over the old seawall and the new seawall. This was not a one-time event. These events have been happening for the last several years. I have no idea what was happening before March of 20 when I first started noticing this. I only noticed it because I happen to be down there for work. I go out there a lot. I used to go out there a lot by foot, not so much anymore, because I have an oyster farm out there. The picture of the healthy dune grass, a couple things about that picture. One, that's more than a couple years old, and I'd love to know what the date of that photo was. And two, I think that photo indicates that the vegetation was not unhealthy down there. Again, I'm down there a lot. That vegetation is healthy until it gets hammered by waves, which is happening repeatedly. So if there is a vegetation that we can plant that's going to have a better chance of surviving native dune grass, that would be great. But I don't know of a vegetation that can do that. The picture of the Scarborough project, you pointed out there's a seawall in front of it. There was also a very steep ladder going down. It would be interesting to know that planting area, how high above highest annual tide is that installation of dune grass versus how high above HAST is the dune grass we're proposing planting here. If you happen to know that answer, that'd be great. But there is not going to be a seawall in front of this dune grass. From what you're saying, it's going to be dune grass on top of sand, on top of geotextile fabric, sloping down to the foot of the existing aged seawall pilings that are there. In terms of the images, going back a few decades of the far end of the point, having grown back in over the last few years, it has. But if you look at the different images that are available from every Google and all the agencies Google steals images from, that whole dune area is a living thing, and it has moved. Where there's a concentration of sand now, there wasn't a few years ago, and then a few years before that, there was. That's what a dune does. And right now, more and more of that sand is on those bars that you're referring to, which I run over on a regular basis, and I have to make sure I go over them at enough water, but that varies storm to storm by a foot. Those dunes that are underwater are moving all the time. And again, I think the logical conclusion is that the combination of increased storm severity with the increase in sea level rise, or increase in the sea level, is what's causing that, but both of those things are going to continue to grow. The storm severity is not going to lessen in the years ahead of us, nor is sea level rise. You mentioned aquaculture playing a role. I spent a lot of time thinking about that. I grow oysters for a living. I know quite a bit about seaweed. There is no aquaculture that you could put on that bar anywhere close to the area that we're talking about in the season that we're talking about. You could grow oysters on that bar in the summertime, but you would have to move them before air temperatures got below 32 degrees or they would die. And I say you could grow them out there, but I guarantee you could not get a permit to grow them there. That's a navigational area that the DMR permitting process would simply not allow you to close it off with any kind of structures that protected that beach. If you tried to put seaweed farms out there in the winter, which would be from October 15th through May 15th, that would provide some sort of buffering. Those could provide some wave action buffering in the wintertime, but not in the summertime. And a lot of these storms are happening, the predominance of the storms is winter, but it's not just winter, it's summer as well. And if we made a line of seawall farms on either side of that cut, again, I don't think DMR would allow that from the standpoint of navigation. The gangway, you mentioned that would be a seasonal gangway, correct?
Yeah,
So the access that we're talking about preserving would now be a seasonal access, not a year-round access.
well, you would have the ability to move it in the off season. So maybe that it's fastened like a seasonal gangway in that it's removable. So theoretically, if you had a big storm coming, or if you did some additional measures, I mean, DEP have said another option that they have seen is people putting up, physically putting fences on the beach during the winter, balancing them with hay bales and putting fences up. You do something like that next to your most vulnerable places, that helps. But to me, in that situation, um, I sort of have to tell the DEP that it's a seasonal or it's a temporary thing because they've got this fixation about putting permanent structures down. So that's where the description comes. But will it be taken out? That's really up to you guys, whether that happens or not.
I was part of putting in the temporary gangway that was down there, and if we didn't move it during storm events, it disappeared. We had to go digging with shovels to find it under the mountains of sand that moved around. The longer gangway would be, so the gangway we put in, the low part of it was underwater, anything above a foot above high tide, and typically a 2 foot high tide in the wintertime is the maximum over average high tide. That longer one would be underwater in all high tides.
Okay, shouldn't be a dialogue back and forth. If you have questions, Bob, and you have comments.
Am I not?
please
Can I make
them
comments?
not
I won't talk to
directly-
Barney, sorry.
Yeah.
The long-term repairs that you showed early in the presentation, I would simply ask that we ask the question, could those long-term repairs, that more massive seawall, be permitted, given the designations on that beach? It's defined as a beach. I've been told by state authorities that those kind of repairs could not be made. So I wouldn't want us to hang this out there as a possibility in the future when I don't think it can be permitted, those more major repairs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Right now, I think we're not talking about those, but Barney, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, just on the aquaculture, I did try to choose aquaculture locations that were, I could see some out there that were already permitted. So I just kind of reorganized those. They're out further than maybe it looks on the drawing. But they're next to some that are already permitted. And I think you're referring to the coastal barrier resource area designation, the COBRA. That it has been placed on Indian Point, but it's to do with federal funding. It basically says no federal funding is available for projects out there. They can still be privately funded, but they just can't be federally funded.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak one way or another?
I just had a question because I was at the town meeting last summer and there was a huge emotional response about, but is there an alternative to like move the road? Is that the other way to go? I thought maybe, I wasn't sure, but is there a way of like just moving the road away and letting the natural action happen?
Yes, Barney, I don't think there's any room to move the road.
So you can't relocate the road within the agreement?
No, I don't think that's it.
It's
Barney can explain.
so the road is kind of at the crest of the hill. As you come in one direction, you approach the seawall. If you go in the other direction, you go into the coastal wetland. Could you move the road not without additional permits or an investigation? You'd have to do more of an analysis of the wetland, and typically regulatory authorities don't like impacting a wetland area if there's another alternative.
Sure.
And the other alternative here is that to fix what has been working for so many years.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I know it's a lot of work.
Okay, anyone else? Paul?
I am a bit confused by the references to or the description of the seawall or the structure that's down there now. And if I heard it correctly, the seawall was going to be used as the toe to anchor the geotextile fabric to, and then to put the sand behind it. And I can only say from my own personal observations that there's a couple of sections of tongue and groove boards that Falls Point Marine put in there. They're barely upright at this time. The remainder of it is heavily thinned out, widely spaced pilings that have no structural integrity at all. And all the way along the parking portion, there is nothing. So I'm very confused about the seawall that's been described as existing, and it would serve as the base of this entire structure for the temporary repairs.
Thank you.
The second question I have is, I am curious to know who the grant is from though.
The Raymond Foundation.
Thank you.
And just as full disclosure, the Raymond Foundation is not part of Indian Island. I mean, the Raymonds are not part of Indian Island. Do you have the comment to make to, regarding, how
Sure.
Well,
So the seawall that's out there, my understanding of it, based on the construction that was described to me, is it extends quite far below the elevation of the sand. So it's a point which defines where the coast was before. So that's a permittable section to get back to. But it's also a point where you can bury an anchor, a geotextile, so that it's not undermined, because the waves can't undermine the seawall that's there because it extends below the surface of the beach.
thank you. Jenny,
I'm just curious to bring up that if we don't go forward with any kind of temporary or permanent repair to try to allow access, since the road is now closed, shouldn't there be an alternative proposal for parking at the top of the road? Right now, it's just a curve that's kind of dangerous, and cars pull over so they can walk down. And in terms of there being a little shabby, there's a historic markings with you want to go down there and see what exists to have a day down there. And so now, instead of bringing your picnic down or whatever, you're going to walk from the top of the road. We have 5 parking spots down there. Will there be 5 parking spots at the top? I don't know if Barney's proposal can't go forward, shouldn't there be a counter proposal? I'm just suggesting to everybody, because I think everybody here treasures going
well, I
to the
think,
hope.
yeah, first we have to decide if we're going forward with that proposal.
Right. But I did want to ask you, what would if we went with the mattress, how much more expensive? would
You have
that
to ask me the chair.
be? Oh,
Okay, just address the chair and he can answer.
Oh.
We just don't want dialogue going back. and
oh,
forth.
sorry. So I'm curious to know, if we didn't go with the temporary and we went with a more formal and ideas like putting a seawall all along that would be higher, whatnot, the mattress idea, the stone wall, how much more would we be talking about to not just do a Band-Aid now, but really go for it?
I
Yeah,
think
so,
what she's talking about is cost.
right. So our estimate was in excess of $1 million
In excess of $1 million.
Yeah. to fix that.
Thank you.
Carol?
Just a couple things. One is the coastal barrier resource designation that Barney mentioned is also a state designation, so you can't spend state funds either.
Yeah, we know.
Either one. And the reason for that is this is a dynamic system, and the intention is to leave them in their natural state because they're coastal barrier resource beaches in general. And there are only a few in Maine, and this happens to be one of them. And it's been studied more recently by the Maine Geological Survey. They've been mapping the movement of the beach, which is natural and will continue and will increase with sea level rise. So personally, as you know, I don't need to go into details. I'm not in favor of spending money on this temporary fix. My suggestion along the lines of what Jenny just said is, let's spend the money on trying to come up with an alternative access solution that might go down over the headland there right at the beginning of the beach, where there could be a permanent point of access. It may be that we have to give up parking down there. Sea level rise is a real thing, and I think we could work with the land trust, Indian Island, and the town to try to come up with a better solution. I think the money would be better used for that type of a solution than to go in and do a temporary fix that could be gone in a year. And, I think part of the reason the beach is in the shape it is because of all the man-made interventions. And if we just left it alone, it could look a lot more like the Cape Cod National Seashore than what it does right now. And I don't think more, it really disturbs me to think that we go down and build a rock barrier along the beach to really, which will not stop it in the long run. That's the reality. So, that to me, that's a natural system that should be left that way as much as possible, or even potentially restored to its complete natural state without seawalls. I don't know what the right answer is for that, but I think it's a possibility. And I think looking at an alternative access that is not subject to the problems with both sea level rise and storm events, which we know are going to continue to increase, would make more sense.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay. Ted, I know you're from Indian Island. Anything you would like to add?
No, I don't want to offer an opinion. I spoke to you a year ago almost, as you sort of embarked on the work that Barney has done, to say that on behalf of Indian Island and those of us who have been involved with that point for a long, long time, we're committed that it's going to be preserved. The question, before you use the hard question about the trade-offs involved in the public access and how far it goes and what risks are incurred. There is an option to invest, and I think that Barney has put forward an approach that could preserve what was contemplated in the road agreement. There's also the alternative of saying if circumstances have arrived at a point in time where that town concludes that that's not something to go forward with, something along the lines of what's also been suggested to retreat back to the North Road and have it be walkable access from there is also an option. And I think what we want to do is to be supportive of the town making a wise decision. Thank you.
All right, so the question before the board tonight is, do we go forward with the idea that we have a road that is not safe? It's not safe for pedestrians right now, as well as cars. So it's not really it's about cars, but it's also about pedestrians. And do we do a fix that could last a year or 10 years? Or do we go, just let it go? So that's really where we are. As I said, we have a matching grant if we decide we want to go forward with this, that is dependent upon this proposal. And personally, I think it's worth a shot. How does the rest of the board, is anyone willing to make a motion?
Me personally, I'm not willing to make a motion right away. I'd like to want to work down there. The thing is, there's no guarantee on it, and I know you can't guarantee it. Is it financially responsible for us to spend $120,000 to hold the road? That the agreement that we have with Indian Island, this thing's maintenance. Once you start rebuilding the road, it no longer becomes maintenance, it's saving the road. So I think at this point we need to step back, relook at a different solution, and get into talks with Indian Point.
Anybody else? Mark?
I'm kind of at the same place. I would be interested to see, first of all, thank you for your work, Barney, and full disclosure, I graduated with Robert Anderson, so I know Robert really well. I know his work is really good. I know he's done some good work. on the shoreline of this area, including Hamilton Beach, which is a different animal. But I just don't have the faith that the existing cedar post down there, which we're calling an existing seawall, is gonna hold up for any amount of time. I've been down there looking at it pretty intensely for the last year or so. I would like to suggest that we consider having a conversation or five with the Ballard family to see if there's any possibility of coming to some sort of an agreement for 4 to 6 cars to park up high somewhere that makes sense for the public road, Ballard family, and for access down there by foot, and then we sort of regroup that way. That's where I am.
Jen?
I'm pretty much in the same boat. I wish that this proposal had shown like 2 different scenarios where one of them would be to relocate the parking up in that flat spot, which has been mentioned, and have a more non-invasive look into reestablishing, you know, a ramp or a footpath down there. It does kind of make more sense, I would think, to have something that came down on a solid ledge versus the moving sand dunes. I don't disagree that, you know, access to the beach and to Little Shebeg is important for the island, but I am not willing to vote to spend that amount of money on something that may or may not last any length of time. So
We have talked to Indian Island about relocating the parking lot. There's not any interest at this point to do that, just to let.
I didn't know that.
Mm.
Jay?
It seems to me that just listening to what the other members of this board have said is that there's a fairly rational path forward, which is basically to try and work out alternative parking and to see what other approaches to this issue can be taken. Because unfortunately, I stick by what I said earlier. I think that this is spending a lot of money on a temporary situation as opposed to trying to create something that will last for a while. And by last for a while, I don't mean building a seawall down there, but I mean moving a parking up higher, or creating an access via path. Makes a lot more sense.
Just to let you know, we do not control, our agreement is the way it's written. And so that would be a totally new negotiation.
I understand, I've got all the agreements.
And the question is, what do we do for this summer? That's really the question. Is, do we allow pedestrians down there when they could go off the road? Right now, we have the road blocked off and cars are still going down there. Who has the liability? So we've got some liability issues. So I don't want to belabor this because we have other things on the agenda. So I would say that what we should probably do is table this and have a workshop on this at a future date. Does that make sense? And I will contact the Raymonds and tell them not to send us $60,000. Okay, so moving on, and Barney, you will send us that report, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're quickly going to talk about the survey from the Melconians and then go on to talking about the Raymonds. All right, so the next item is we need to have a survey done for the Melconian drainage easement. Do we have a motion to authorize that?
Who
who has he been using to do our survey?
Blue Flag was used,
I knew you were gonna ask me this, and I meant to write it down, but I didn't.
I know we used Blue Flag.
I have information on who we used before.
The big technique, isn't it? I believe that's what it
It's
is.
like on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it, and I knew you were gonna ask me.
I think we've had numerous people do it.
Just so everybody knows, we need to, the lawyer asked us to do a survey with more accurate numbers and measurements for the Malconia drainage, which is to drain Julie's property over to the Malconia's property. She didn't like the drawings, so she asked us, to have props for. So, I move that we hire Sedago Technics to conduct a survey for the Malconian drainage.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll only second it if I know if there's a number, any kind of number.
Not this one.
Can I make a suggestion that you authorize the town administrator to provide you a quote for,
Yeah, all right.
or, you know,
So I move that we have the town administrator look into quotes for this, a survey of the Malconian drainage easement.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so my question about that is, when do we plan to do this work? Because we need to get on a list for surveys, because this is the time of year when they're all really busy. And so, does anybody know what the schedule is for doing this? Do we want to do it early summer, late summer, next fall?
Soon as we get the bill.
Okay, so, my suggestion would be if Sedago Technics, is not busy, I mean, if they're busy, that you go to somebody else like Blue Flag who has done.
I
work
will, I'll look
for the
into it and
cemetery.
see what we've done
He's done work
before.
for the cemetery, Sawanda has been down here, he's done work for people. So there's three that we know of. So-
That's why I figured this would be a better motion, so you're not limited to one person. If they say they can do it, then I'll try to,
Time and price range.
Well,
yeah.
my
I'll try to
suggestion
find
would
something.
be, is if somebody made a motion for a survey that was, less than $5,000. Because, it's coming out of drainage and it's probably gonna be like 3,500, it's not a big area. But, you never know what they're gonna get into. And if we had a motion up to a certain amount and she was able to get within that amount, we wouldn't have to come back.
That was my point.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to
I
come
didn't
back.
make it well, I apologize.
So is there someone who's willing to make a new motion? I'm just thinking, how do we move this forward?
It is, I will say, it is something that needs to be done. So
And I say not to amend it to, not exceed 5,000.
You gonna second that?
Yeah, I'll second it. I would like to make a quick statement.
What? Everybody get a chance to make a quick
I
statement.
realize I'm known as the road, one of the road paving kings of the island, but, the south road from Roy Hill Road to the inn is the last decent section that the town of Cumberland left to us before we became a town. It's actually hot top, it's hot mix. And it's cracked, and we've done a lot of work to it. And in the next year or two, we need to either resurface or double chip seal this stretch of road. And we've been talking about this repair for 2 years. We need to get this done. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have a question about the survey? Joe?
I thought we already discussed this, decided to hire the surveyor some time ago.
No, we didn't get to the survey part. Bo was gonna be the surveyor. He's gonna use the change minutes. Let him go work.
Memory serves.
the discussion, all the paperwork that I've looked through, the discussion was to proceed with doing the drainage, the easement, doing all the work that is revolved around that. And then when it came to the lawyer looking at what you had, that's when the drawings that Bo had, where it was, approximate footage here and there. wasn't good enough, and so her recommendation was to do the survey done for this particular one, which we don't have.
Anybody else have a question on the board? Anybody, we have two, John and then Paul.
What is the drainage issue there?
Okay, the drainage issue at where it will go down to Melconian is between, where Mike has his traps, or in that area, and Julie's, and the water comes down through, and in the winter, it forms an ice sheet there. And it's, I can tell you, as someone who lives in the neighborhood, it's very slippery. And also it's, coming, it floods out down there. And so the idea is to, Melconians have agreed to let the water run down through their property, which is the natural drainage easement. The road just kind of broke it. And that's what the story is.
So it's like putting in a culvert and increasing the flow down.
Yeah. Paul?
Oh, I actually did understand your drawings. I've never seen them before, but I wanted to understand the scope of this project.
Paul, if you don't want to say more than just one thing, I'm sorry, I'm not
That's
going to pick you.
You took one.
I only said one word. I was going to throw.
I just wanted to understand the town scope of this project, because when I looked at your drawings, clearly there was one under the South Road, okay? And then one under Secret Road alongside South Road, within the boundaries, I assume, of the town. The remainder of your drawings were on private property down a private road. Is this survey for that, or is this drainage effort on private property, private roads, private culverts, or is this focused solely on South Road, essentially?
What I can tell you, what it is the water is going to go down onto the Meltonians, just like when we did the one on Firehouse Road where it went down by where Frank Calder lived in Roy. So the water came off the road and we had a drainage easement that went down through there. So it's allowing the town's water to go down through there.
So what you saw, the drawing that was further down, like 400 feet on the side.
Yeah,
of
there
the
were
road,
two,
yes.
at least two other culverts or three.
So the Secret Road culvert is just to address the pitch of it. Further down, with talks with the Melconians,
Mhm.
if it comes through the woods and starts concentrating in that area too hard, then we would create a pool there with some riprap to slow the progression of that water, so, slow the water down before it goes any further.
So I guess then I'm confused, because the town's not doing anything to increase the volume of water that's already going across the South Road and going downhill to the ocean. And any improvement or enhancement of private drainage or installation of culverts on private roads, then to me creates a problem where the people on Deer Point would love the assist, okay? The people on a host of other private roads would love the assist. Clearly, I have a case myself where water has been redirected by the town at different times because of culverts on the North Road next to my property. So is this a new precedent where the town's going to chase the water all the way down to the shore? And if private property owners are impacted by this, is the town going to install culverts, provide riprap, drainage pools, etc.? Where does this stop or where does it start?
Well, we did that at Firehouse Road.
So we're not proposing to put any culverts down the road.
But your drawings did show that.
I'm showing the drawings that the culverts that was there.
There's already culverts.
So I would, if that's what the drawing shows, I'm sorry, that's not what I implied by it. I was just trying to show where the water was moving around.
Okay.
So the only thing in the proposal would be the culvert across the South Road here, the culvert or resetting or adjusting the secret at the end here on the side of the road, riprapping that with a small pool, and then, or maybe within 10 years, the arrangement, I believe it's 10 or 15 years. And if it starts creating a problem, to slow the water down before that culvert where,
There's two down there. There's one of, the old Higgins property going up there.
yes,
And then there's another one further down with McGovern.
so the one by Higgins. To create a pool there to slow the water even more.
Could I have a question?
Yes.
But you had, there's some good points here. And Paul's first question was, if we go forward with this survey, does the survey benefit anything on private property? That's really what your question, isn't it?
I think what it does, it benefits the fact that they're letting us put water down there, and we have to know where that's going to go. Isn't that why we do the survey, to identify
Yeah.
where the actual drainage easement is?
So even though I may vote for this survey work, I'm not sure I agree it's necessary. But isn't the reason for it simply to have an accurate description when it gets filed at the registry?
Right, and that's exactly it.
Isn't that the real reason for it?
Right,
And as far as the town performing work on private property, what's the answer to that?
that's why we get a
That way
drainage
it's an
easement. If we couldn't do it if we didn't have a drainage easement. Because we wouldn't be able to drain water.
The language is in the easement to allow us to do that pool down
Yeah,
there with the river.
and
And the town meeting already approved the, this project.
And I will say, when we started talking about the firehouse road drainage easements with Roy Jackson and at the time, John Riley, who's now resold the old Calder house, I did say to myself and all of us, if this goes forward, this is going to set some real precedent. Thank you for your comment.
All right, anybody else have a comment about, the, drainage easement? I think it was the last town meeting that we approved that. And as, I think it's, just to clarify, it's not to survey the property of the Milconians, it's to survey where the drainage easement will be so that we can have an accurate description.
I have one more comment on that.
Sure,
I'm not gonna recommend any more new culverts.
ever,
It's too risky.
let them all rot out.
New culverts. This culvert is not currently existing, that's the reason for all of this.
Anyone else on the board have a question? All right, anybody else in the audience? All right, so we have a motion, can we restate the motion?
Authorize the town administrator to look into getting quotes for a survey of the Melconian property. And then it was amended to say the cost not to exceed $5,000.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion to have a survey to define the drainage easement on the Melconian's property?
Can I ask a quick question? Where's the $5,000 coming from?
Drainage easements, yeah. We have a fund that's for this purpose, right? I mean, I assume that's what it's for. Okay. All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, so the next is to provide an update on the congressional community grant. So I've been working with the delegations of, all the delegations from, Collins, King and Pingree, but mostly with Collins and Pingree. And they've been, helping us go through this. And the idea would be to, apply to fund an accessible ramp and float system at Cousins Island. We have a budget that has been, we have a draft of a plan, which is sufficient for the application, which has 4 different scenarios in it. And part of the whole plan would be to actually do some preliminary work to, with stakeholders, with finding out what, permitting and all of that. And so basically, to make a stronger application, if we, what they call is, what is it called, something in the game? Whatever they say. Skin in the game, yeah. So my thought would be, we have money in both in ramps and floats. And if we took $20,000 out of that, or earmarked $20,000 of that floats and ramps, and use that as, earmarked it for the beginning of the study of this project, that would make our application much more attractive because it shows that we're serious about it. It's about a $300,000 project. And so if we contributed $20,000 to it and started the work, and then we were fortunate enough to actually receive it next spring, we would be in a good position to have this go forward. Even if we don't get the grant, eventually we're going to have to do it because we are out big time out of compliance with the ADA on all of our ramps in this community. They've actually increased the size of the ramps, and so we are out of compliance. So I found that out while I was talking to all of these different people. I've had a conversation today. I was referred by Susan Collins' office, and I've been in communication with somebody at DOT who's working. We'll find out tomorrow or the next day if they put this project on their DOT list, and it's got an acronym that's like SLIP or something like that. And if they do that, we are in line for funding for this project, to at least be considered. So anyway, that's where we are. And to me, this is worth an opportunity. It's up to this board to decide if they want to earmark that $20,000 from the floats and ramps to have that available to start this, to get this going. We don't have a contract yet or anything, so that this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. But the first grant is due 6 o'clock on Friday. So that's why I'm asking you today. The next one is due next Wednesday, and the next one is due, I think, Thursday or Friday. All of these legislators have different applications, and they all have different dates and times when they're due. We have over a dozen letters already supporting this project from organizations and individuals in the community. And there's several more that are supposed to come in tomorrow. So there's interest in the community in doing this. And so anyway, that's where we are.
I'm prepared to make a motion for that question first.
Sure.
Have we gotten anything from our fire and rescue division about any benefit to putting in a longer or wider ramp?
I spoke with Steve Olfont yesterday, and he's one of the people I'm waiting for. He was going to write a letter. He's been real straight with the kids' play stuff and all that. But he was, he told me he'd be happy to write a letter, and I'm just waiting.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to make available if a grant process comes forward for a project over at Cousins for longer ramp and float, to use up to $20,000 of our existing reserve fund for floats and ramp. I don't have the number of the accounts, so excuse me.
90/20.
What is it?
90/20.
Account 90/20. Thank you.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on the board? Any other discussion? Any discussion in the audience? You want to weigh in one way or the other? All right.
Just like to point out that we only have a balance of $27,624, $27,622. So if this moves forward in the near future, this will be down to about $7,000 moving forward for maintaining or improving anything for floats and ramps.
So the balance number that we have in the actual budget is wrong.
Maybe, I'm looking at the Machias Savings Bank reserve accounts along with the withdrawals.
The general budget says 32,600.
We did the new size one.
I think we withdrew $5,000 for something. I'll be darned if I can remember what.
This is date on this?
Floats and ramps, there's
Well,
27,626.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made a withdrawal for 5,000.
Okay, so, just to clarify, the idea would be if we qualify for that, for the DOT, the idea would be we come back and decide to actually start, maybe go for bid or, whatever. Just make sure that everybody understands that we're not committing to anything right now, we're just, so that I can fill out the application and say the town as of right now is willing to, is earmarked $20,000, basically. Is that where we are? I just want to make sure we're clear that we all know what we're doing. Okay? All right, no one in the audience has anything one way or the other to say about it? Jackie? Well,
I'm struck by the lack, I understand the lack of ADA compliance, but I'm also struck by the high degree of that opens us up to liability of not being in compliance if there were, some kind of tragic event with the current ramp situation over there.
yeah, and it's not just there, it's at the Stone Wharf and it's at Chandler's Cove. I mean, I just started to think about, I don't know how that works with liability, but,
Well, I'm sure there is some liability. There could be
Yeah.
potentially.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay,
So this is for a larger float?
John,
Is it for a larger float?
it's for, what they have to do is build a larger float, and then they have to figure out how to configure it at the off the wharf. There's various ways you could do it, and then,
Can
So that's why we have
can we
a
ask the
range.
rest of the float have two floats instead of one?
no, that's why we have a range of prices in here.
Yeah.
Because it might go off the end of the wharf, it could go where it is now. And they're gonna do depths. This is just a concept right now. But we're gonna do something at some point. Thank you. All right, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, 3-2. All right, so let's move on to, the budget workshop. I'm going to turn this over to Mark in just a minute, but we have some people who need to go on the vote at 9 o'clock. So if there's somebody in the audience who's willing at 9 o'clock to give them, the vote's at 9:15, if we're not finished, is there anybody who's going to stick around till then to drive them? Okay.
Well, you drive now, but I don't think you're allowed on the boat.
No, yeah, so we'll make sure you get to the vote, don't worry. So if anybody wants a little break,
We're just gonna wait for Jen to come back and I think to keep this simple, I think you should highlight whatever you made for adjustments, if you can
Okay.
do that, and then, I don't know how deep you want to get into anything.
I just have one quick question at some point during the whole discussion.
Okay.
So I can tell you when she comes back from the last meeting we had, the 3 changes that you wanted to make. Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah.
And then if you have any additional questions?
Yeah, just highlight those for me, and I'll let everybody know what specific questions they have. And then I have a couple of thoughts that we should be thinking about, like I said.
Maybe a question real quick.
Should we wait till
No,
Jen?
yeah,
Oh.
it's not that important. How hard is it to take, the line item 3040, equipment maintenance and fire station, fire and rescue. A new 400 amp service. You take that out over there.
Yeah, that's a
The
good-
wording,
Just the wording. There's nothing crucial. It's
Oh, no money anymore.
I took it out, but then I apparently didn't hit the right, F12, F7, F6 button to save that change. But
minor detail.
it's easy if I follow the right steps. So,
So if you guys don't mind, we're just gonna start with a quick explanation from Vika of 2, 3 specific items that we asked her to make adjustments on from last time.
so the last meeting, the adjustments that you had asked for was, we were increasing, no changes under 1,300. The one change that will be made, so on Tuesday, you have a joint meeting coming up with the school board, and I'm gonna have an updated draft for you, which will have the lower full-time wages under 1,300, 1,000, because I met today with, the superintendent, and we figured those numbers out, and I also have all the school board numbers from their drafted budget, so that will be included in this, so I'll have that for you. But from last meeting to this meeting, there were no changes in 1,300. 1,400, the assessing maps, it was raised from 1,000 to $1,800. So that was one change. The second change was in 1,900, which was legal services. And you brought it down to an even $10,000. So that was changed. And then the only other change was Harbor Master 2,500. The membership fees went up from 125 to 150. For that, under 3,100, under barging, you increased it from $14,000 to $16,000. That. And so I was wrong, 4 changes, not 3. So,
Okay. With you, Bo, do you have specific questions on any or all divisions or pages of the budget?
I don't have questions. Things with cooperators would be better. I didn't like the number that we came up with at the end. So I was gonna propose that we put in, I can't remember if we put in $100,000 in the Stonework reserve for a reason, besides just putting the bank in there.
That was the reason.
Just the bank.
Just to build the account up.
So,
Simply build up the account with some reason.
so due to the amount that our budget is over, proposing that we bring it down 50 grand.
How much would that leave us?
Currently, we've got 202.
there's currently 200,000 in it. The first capital meeting you had, you talked about putting 100 in. The second, it was 50, and so I wasn't sure whether you wanted 100, whether you wanted 150, whether you wanted 50. So I just left it at that 100 mark. And so right now there's around 200,000, but we do have some stuff that's been coming in from Bright Pierce and from CDM Mahar. So those will be adjusted. So in a couple of weeks, probably a month from when we pay the bills to when the next Machias Savings Bank adjustments will be a little bit less.
My suggestion to that would be, and I'm not gonna be here at the time, but if you really wanna have a finished project for the Stonework by next, some final plans by next spring, you need more money in there for engineers.
I understand, but.
I mean, it's up to you guys.
Trust me, I know,
It's up to you guys, whether or not, you know, you want to get to the finish with this, so that you know, can be ready for grants next spring, or do you want to drag on in the weed? I mean, I'm just reality.
No, I understand, at this point, I probably could have built this home here twice over, but it's the underlying number that I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just raising that issue so that people understand, you know, what next spring when when the big grants come out. For example, you know, people talked about another one of these congressional, what you call it. The further along you are in the process, the better off you are because to get funding.
Okay, so you asking for support for this?
I'm proposing we bring it down to $50,000.
Jay? He wants to bring 100,000.
Yeah, I actually heard that. Basically, right now, the budget as it stands is 300 grand over last year in round numbers, just so bigger picture. Knocking 50 grand out of parts of the capital budget there and maybe one or two other places isn't really necessarily the fiscally responsible way of lowering it. I'm not sure how or where folks want to take a look at lowering things, but there are no big numbers in the regular operating budget. I mean, there's 20,000 here, 15,000 there, but you're not gonna, it's not gonna work to get that number down to where you want to be so that you're gonna have flat from last year. So I think that we just have to sort of make the decision that it isn't gonna happen.
Okay.
And then move forward with where we want to spend money.
So your answer is no.
Yeah,
Your answer is
that would
no.
be correct.
Your answer is no. Doesn't matter what my answer is.
All right,
I
so,
don't even think that's gonna be enough, you know, I mean.
all right,
yeah.
so I do have another recommendation.
Okay.
Once again, it's line item 9050 in the capital improvement paving. And suggesting we lower that $50,000, bring it back to 125.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
And how would that impact the product of our plan?
Well, I can tell you specifically, if you don't mind, Vic, if you mind me answering that.
Go for it.
So right now, right now in paving, we have about $185,000. We need $150,000 to pay the balance of the chip seal project, which is going to happen this year with Austin Sherrard Son. There's also another pending possible project of paving Chandler's old cart, tops of caps and fenders. That's 140,000. 150,000 and 140,000, $290,000. So we would need another 130.
So 185.
185 minus 150 is 30.
Yeah.
And we need 140. So we would need 110 or 20, right? And we put in 175. So you're recommending taking out how much, 50?
Yeah, to bring it down to 125.
I'll be quick. I don't disagree with what Jay is saying. You can move numbers all around, you can put the numbers in, you can take them out, and you can kick the can down the road for next year and the year after for paving and working on the wharf and working on the, playground, or whatever, I'm just using a funny example. But for the most part, we are doing pretty good with our savings program. In here, we've got $50,000 putting away for another fire engine. We've also got some money that we're trying to put away to possibly buy another piece of equipment for public works. I almost didn't go along with that because we just financed a plow truck for public works. And that's costing us $22,000 a year for 6 years. So I could actually go along with taking the $50,000 out of the paving plan. So how about you?
I'm fine, as long as you can get with this done, because I've made a big progress on Henderson Road with.
How do you guys feel about taking $50,000 out of the paving?
If it's still gonna get the payment that needs to be done, then I'm okay with it. If it's not, I don't want to.
It will is the answer.
Doesn't matter with it.
If we get some things done, I mean, if you can turn around and say, look at all the paving we got done this year. If you can demonstrate to people that you've actually done something positive with the money, there's a lot less angst about the fact that taxes will probably go up. And remember, I don't know what the school budget's gonna look like, because the 300, that were over last year doesn't include the school budget. So that could be another potential issue. So if we can get all the paving done that we've talked about, and, for 100, and for whatever we're gonna reduce it to, that's fine. But let's get some things done that we can point to and say, we finished some projects for change. We got, people were waiting for paving, for a year and a half now. I mean, not that it's our fault or anything else, but let's get it done.
Did you have any more specific? How about you?
Yeah, I have one question.
Wait, so you're bringing that down, what, $50,000?
Paving.
Minus 50,
It'll be 125 more, I think.
back to the other.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, because I spoke with Marjorie, and I heard, and I asked her if she could talk to you, but I don't know if she got around to it. Because I was talking to her about the need for that $30,000 for the reimbursement.
Yes, I did talk to her
And she
about that.
told me it was not really need that much money.
That was one adjustment that I did to lower things from last time, and I forgot to mention that. If you look under, health insurance benefits, benefit insurance, it is, and let me pull up what it was. 3060. So the last budget we talked about, it was 130. Thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot that part.
It'll be page 22, line 1210.
Yeah, so the last meeting we talked about, it was $134,244, and the HRA, the insurance reimbursement was a question. And so what had happened is she shared the original document that she used to use, which was not used the previous year. And so when I put the numbers in, according to what she had in the spreadsheet, I put the full amount that we would potentially pay out. And so that increased the line item by so much. And then when she was here last week, I mentioned it to her. Well, what she had done is she had taken the previous couple of years and she had averaged. And so as a result, it never exceeded to that full amount. And so that particular line item, I dropped from 134,000 to 116,744, because it didn't necessarily need all of that in it. So.
Great, thank you. That's my question.
Jen, did you have anything?
Yep, just a note. Did you know that you took 2020 actual numbers out and put 2019 in there. So it goes 2019 to 2021.
No,
So that kind of was okay, because then I just took, it gave me an even broader picture of what was going on, because I took the 20.
every time I print this out, I have to click each little
Yeah, I
button.
figured that.
And then, you know, F12 does this, F this does that, which is why sometimes the notes don't get erased.
But it was okay because it helped me see a broader picture. And in doing so, I mean, they're minor little tweaks, but I'm gonna bring them up anyway because in the end, it's gonna show that we did everything we could to get the budget where it needs to be, or where it actually is. So I picked on 3,100 in public services.
Let's say your one.
I'm on page 13. And then just looking at the different numbers, and I know it's a crapshoot, you know, with overtime and that sort of thing. But I wondered why, if we've only used up, you know, we still have a huge balance in the overtime and the actual for the last few years. And I'm on 1010, and I'm sorry, I'm tired. I thought it was, you could drop from 4,000 down to 3,500 for that one. For overtime, based on all the numbers, you could drop from 7,000 down to 5,000. For gasoline, you could drop to 3,000 for that one, based on the numbers. And then the last one was building maintenance, 4,000, and you could drop from 3,500 to 2,500.
I'm fine with all those numbers, anybody else?
I'm not fine with the last one, because I'm looking at this, we had one.
I'm sorry,
year-
what was the last
So
one?
the last one is 4,000 building
Building
maintenance.
maintenance.
I think these actually, there was one of these that was a door.
Yeah. but I
One
mean,
was the other door, the shed door.
So we've got like 5,000, or almost 4,000, 2,500, and 1,500. I mean,
But if
so-
you look at what we budgeted this year was 2,500, and the year to date is only $918.60. And, you know, we only have three months left.
Right, but if you look at the years before that, I guess that's what I'm looking at. If we-
With some of these items, what Chuck's been trying to do is keep not do certain things and then wait towards the end of the budget, like if something needs upkeep or
Yeah.
something needs to be done, and try to use some of that money now.
So anyway, that was where
I guess that's it, without, what, I mean,
The overtime wages, I thought we were gonna try to do the bulky waste weekend this year, so that chews up some time. I know it doesn't chew up $7,000, but,
do they get overtime for
you,
If
Yeah.
they work
Yeah, they
a
work
week
Saturday.
and that, they would get overtime. The other thing was,
Saturday and Sunday.
but you never know what kind of snowstorm we're gonna get, what kind of,
Patriots Day
any
storm.
kind of storm we're gonna get.
I will say with the overtime, the last budget season, the overtime wasn't adequately journaled in the right. So we have to, when we post all of the money from payroll, overtime really needs to be cut out of that and split and put into that overtime line, and it was not done. So this past year would not have an adequate reflection on the overtime that they would have potentially used.
you suggesting it should stay at 7,000?
Okay, I'm gonna raise this discussion, you guys saying you're not good with our proposed number. Is that what I'm hearing?
I wasn't, and for those particular two, the others are like 500 here and 500 there.
Yeah, I don't really care either way, just, it's,
The last two, those are the only two that I'm.
To me, it's a little tight.
It sounds like you're not in favor. Jay, you're the tiebreaker. Either you're in favor of her, what she's recommended, or you're not.
Can I pick and choose? I mean, the wages and the overtime, I think cutting it back is fine. Gasoline, fine. The building maintenance, I'm really not sure. I mean, if does Chuck have projects that's gonna eat it up? Or is he,
I know that, I mean, from talking to him, I know there are certain things that he waits until closer towards the end of the budget to use some of the money. He did, when we were going into this budget season, he did ask me, where he stood, and he said, don't let them take any more money from this, from this department, so.
I mean, they were asking for a generator, throw the side generator.
I thought they got one.
they got,
Or they got one already?
apparently,
Or
that was the
or
last
whatever the other
conversation.
one was.
There was a generator and then
Power washer.
power washer, they just got the power washer. The generator is coming, in the next budget season. Because we budgeted for equipment maintenance. For one of them, it's being added extra couple $1,000 or whatever the cost was for the next one. So you split it between this budget season and the next one would be the generator.
So Jay, is it down to just building maintenance with you? Is that where you're stuck?
Yeah, make it 3,000. How's that for?
What did you propose then? I'm sorry.
Post 2,500.
What do you think about three?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right, so building maintenance is 3,000,
Yeah.
and then give me the other ones that you agreed on.
Sorry, I did.
Gasoline's 3,000, overtime is 5,000, and wages part-time 3,500.
Jen, did you have other points of question?
Oh, when it comes to the harbor master and Shellfish, I'm not sure if this is where we want to tackle that now, or if we want to discuss this part when we discuss harbor master position.
I don't think that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think it'd be really.
Two ways to do it.
I would think we would want more of an in-depth philosophical / funding discussion. Does that sound
Sounds good
like
to
where we
me.
want to go?
Mhm.
Okay. Did you have other specifics, Jeff?
Oh, it's back to that painting. Painting of the solid waste, 3,200.
That's an operational now.
20,000, that's in. We had 13,000 in the capital budget left over for that. And then we added 20,000 into the operational budget to cover the balance of what we expect it's gonna cost.
Because it was gonna be a one-time deal.
Yeah,
Did you have a position on that, Jen, or you just mentioned
I'm just saying that I disagree wholeheartedly with it right now because of the way everything is, because I'm just looking at the bottom line.
it? I actually do too. I think it's a complete farce that you'll get those paying right now. I'm sorry.
But how many years is this that we've been told
But
by
it's
the
been-
insurance
it's been
company
4
we're
years
supposed to
now.
do it? I mean,
Let 'em
4
come and
years.
go at the hearing, I'll say.
Why not do it? Because
I'm sorry, every year we've been trying to save $5,000 and it gets voted out, because we put $5,000 to save up for it.
And it's increased in the cost if we've done it in the first place.
I could spray that with Rust-Oleum.
I would happily spray.
Are you making any sort of motion to
I'll make a
remove that?
I would remove that.
Okay. You guys are no's.
How'd you know?
Jay, I'm sorry, but I think it's back to you. And I think you're a no, but I'm not sure. No meaning don't remove it.
I unfortunately am gonna agree. I'm gonna say no. Remove it.
Okay, thank you. Jay, did you have specifics besides the fact that
No,
keep
I
telling
just,
yourself how the budget is?
no, I just, you know, when you go through this, there are ways to, you know, as it's just been demonstrated, there are ways to save bits and pieces. But even saving the 20 grand on the painting, you know, is not gonna knock that. And that's, again, that's 300 grand before the school budget comes in. So we could be talking about 400 grand.
And can you show us how you got that number?
Okay, the numbers are Department 1300 are up 20, is up 21,000. The audit's up 8 grand. 2,200 fire and rescue, wages are up 22,250. Communications up 2,500.
You went through every department, added the increase, then you added the capital,
Capital increase, and that's
and you came up with 300 grand.
a couple bucks short, but for a nice round number, 300 dollars.
Okay.
I have another formula that Marjorie saved where once the school budget goes in, I can go in and plug the numbers in and that could tell you more precise.
And the numbers at the end right now, I understand, do not include the school budget
Correct.
number, so
Yeah.
you really don't, she really doesn't have the number in there, Jay.
And that's what, like I said, I met with Ann today and she gave me that breakdown. And so I'm gonna work on it tomorrow and I hope to have it emailed to you on Friday so you can study it before our Tuesday meeting.
Okay, did you have any specific points?
No, I
Okay.
mean, just, I went through and just,
I've been going through trying to save money and I've not been that successful. I do have one more. This is an ongoing question for me, so I apologize in advance. It has to do with barging and the public services, public works department. And I realize that it's hard to track some of the invoicing from Lionel Plant possibly, or whatever. Here's my question. The barging, has had some high numbers attached to it. And the numbers have been, numbers have been in 2021, $22,582 of barging, and so far this year, almost 20,000. And here's my question. If we're bringing vehicles over for public work, we're paying a barging fee, we must be paying a truck time fee for the driver, and are we paying materials? Because $20,000 of barging is a lot of money. You see my question? Do you understand my question? So my real question is some of that money supposed to be over in road materials or winter sand materials? See what I'm saying? For budgeting purposes. Does that make sense, Jay?
I'm turning this over to Bo. I'm gonna kick these guys to the vote.
Okay. Do you see what I'm saying, Jay?
no, I see, I see what you're saying. I just, until you start going through every bill,
I know.
you're not gonna have the answer, and I don't think that we're
No,
gonna be
we're
doing
not,
that.
we're not gonna have the answer right now, but for next year's budget, in other words, we're gonna put in, $16,000 to $20,000 for barging in the department, and then 18,000 for road materials, and then.
So from the
20,000.
bookkeeping perspective, what I could share with you is when the bills come in and it's Lionel Plant, that goes under barging. When it comes in and it is, the salt, the bill for the salt or the bill for the road, for the actual physical materials, then that goes under road materials or that goes under, winter,
Sand, yeah.
sand. And so majority of this is really going to be a vinyl plant and the physical cost of the barge.
Right, so the bills are clearly broken down.
Well, yeah, because we have the specific vendors who will come.
Right.
On occasion, Lionel Plan will say you have like a documentation under it where it'll say, X, Y dollars for this particular product, in which case we take portion of that bill and put it under that and another portion and put it under that account. But for the most part,
So when it says barging, we spent that much.
it's for things like, barging something over on CTC or Lionel Plant. So it's gonna be the combination of those two companies. So if we're barging over, like any kind of vehicles, or for instance, if we're barging over the cruiser for maintenance, something like that, then that goes under barging. So it's,
In this department,
not that, I guess that was a bad example, not the cruiser, for, if
no,
we're
I'm not
taking,
nitpicking.
if we're taking.
The new plow truck back and forth the next
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
just to clarify, what he's asking, I think what he's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is Lionel Plant charges for barging, which is his boat. Then he charges for delivery of material. And that's, truck time, and I don't know if he's got labor time, I think it's all under truck time, honestly. And then he charges you for the material. That is not, those are like three separate different costs.
Yeah.
So trucking is a separate, almost its own separate cost.
I'm just saying that even at $500 a vehicle, you would have to buy 40 vehicles to get $20,000 worth. That's a lot. That's all I'm saying. So for budgeting purposes moving forward, that's really what I'm saying. I'm not saving any money tonight. Sorry.
How many words of actually road materials and so forth?
So the truck.
You're thinking about every time, yeah.
That's not a shocking number.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful if you come and actually look, at an invoice or two, just to see
Yeah.
what it's.
Then I can go yell at Coley. That'll be helpful.
Go for it.
I don't know where else we want to go with this budget tonight if we're not really ready to attack any more subtractions. We gotta wait till the school brings forward. And again, you have experience, even after we meet with them, is it next week? Is that right? Even after we meet with them, they're not gonna be ready,
Yeah,
right?
usually once they come to us, it's not a final, there could be something weird happen. But it's usually pretty.
And you think we'll get it like before this weekend? So we can look at it?
The rough school budget,
Yeah.
do you think we'll get anything to look at?
I met with Ann this morning. She gave me the numbers. I'm gonna work on plugging them in tomorrow. And I hope to email you one of these exact looking things with these updated numbers and putting in what they have for their draft school budget.
Okay.
So you'll get one of these, but all the school information will be filled in.
All right.
So,
Sorry, I wasn't better prepared tonight for this budget, but I just wasn't. And a hell of a week. So now to turn back over to you, Mr. Vice Chairman, or actually, communications.
So we'll move on to communications. We got a letter from the Maine Lobstermen Association Incorporation.
Looking for nothing.
So, yeah, basically, I didn't know if you guys were interested in this or you want to put it on a future agenda.
Have they asked before?
Not to my recollection.
I don't have any record of them ever asking before.
I'm sorry, but just in, talking about our budget, I'm nothing against the Maine Lobstermen Association. I think they do great work, but we don't have
This would be out of the current budget.
Well, now, the other thing that's an interesting thought here for Black is that lacking an audit, we don't know what our unexpended monies are.
That's
And
right.
in every year for the last number of years, we've taken, it was 150 last year.
Yeah.
You know, to help mitigate the damage.
Increase.
So,
I'm gonna have, not through an audited perspective, but that's something that Marjorie and I talked about last week she was here.
mhm.
And she is going to the next time she comes. She started it already, but the next time she comes, she's gonna have a pretty good number where we stand with that. And so you'll have,
if we have a usable number, that may be, you know, what will help us mitigate the.
Okay, well, we're going off topic here a little bit. We're talking about it.
No, we wouldn't do that.
If we're gonna entertain the main lobsterman or we're not this evening, or we put it on the future agenda.
I'm not interested in entertaining it. Or
Okay.
putting it on the future agenda right now.
Jay?
I don't know, I guess my initial reaction was sending $100 out of contingency, but. You know, I mean, just we're here to support you kind of thing. But I'm not rabid about it at all.
So we'll pass. Was there any other communication?
I shared all of it earlier.
All right, can we get a motion to approve the minutes for March 16th, 2022?
So,
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, vote. Four. Items to be placed on the future agenda. Donna's got the Chandler's Cove Beach. I don't know what she meant by that. I didn't hear how she told herself.
she's not here to defend herself, so let's just move
All
on.
right, and then the Stone Wharf Road. Wanted to talk about that, I guess.
The stone
They're gonna have-
for widening,
Yes, the widening of the road.
transfer station study.
So the standard, yeah,
It's gonna be another full one. Then we have
Yeah.
quite a few things for the next one already.
And really quickly, if I may, Mr. Vice Chairman, Dan Diffin was the original person who started helping us on the project, who gave it to the other person who left, at this point.
I thought the name looked familiar. I was like,
Oh, yeah. I didn't say anything.
Well, what was the other items? Do you know offhand? No?
Surprises.
Go way too much this week. Facilities committee presentation,
Oh,
transfer station report, Stonework Widening. And then I'm gonna bring up a discussion of, seeing where you stand with, trying to get a volunteer or an, Island Institute fellow or something like that to potentially help us with, clean up some of our records and organize some
Well, how
more.
about one who just finished an accounting degree?
They'll be on the next one.
Like an intern?
I have a suggestion
There's our
for
bookkeeper.
somebody that's willing to do it for free for a couple of weeks for us.
Just to know, it was Donna's birthday tonight, today. Yeah,
I didn't know.
Oh, shoot.
so happy birthday, Donna. Not that she'll listen to this, but, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, oh, Peter. what I wanted to ask is on that, transfer